All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Mike Lindsley back with you. It is time for 9 Minutes with me on Facebook, IGTV, and on YouTube. Be sure to hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. And of course, you can download and subscribe to my podcast. It is called the ML Sports Platter, all over the major platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Deezer, the Podbean app, YouTube, and Tumblr. We are brought to you by Bryant and Stratton College, Empower Federal Credit Union, and our great friends over at Timberbanks Golf Club. Make sure that you do, in fact, log on to timberbanks.com. Get your membership for 2020 today. Also, a big tip of the cap, thank you to Ken's Auto Detailing and our great friends at Hydes of Liverpool. If you are in and around Central New York, you got to get to Hydes for the best Hoffman hot dog off the grill. Pair it with your favorite side. Hydes of Liverpool is a proud sponsor of the ML Sports Platter. Gift cards are available for the holidays as well. Well, look, after week 14, it was just a wild, wild weekend of games. Expect the unexpected on some Sundays in the NFL. The any given Sunday situation striking certainly against the Houston Texans. The Broncos go in and blow them out. The Titans win again. The Steelers win again. The 49ers beat the Saints in what was arguably the best game of the NFL season. Crazy stuff going on there. Well over 500 yards of total offense for the 49ers. Jimmy G throws 4 touchdowns. They go into one of the hardest places to win in the NFL, although the 49er fans were representing very, very well. Eli Manning has a little bit of a comeback and a loss against Philadelphia. The Ravens beat the Bills. They've now won 9 in a row. The Chiefs took care of the Patriots in Foxborough, of course, with a little bit of help from the refs, but more so it was, I think, a little bit more the story that the Chiefs offense got it done in the beginning of the game and overwhelmed the Patriots defense, and then in the end, New England's offense just couldn't get it going. They still almost won that game, but it was still continued woes for the Patriot offense. And, of course, the Chiefs' defense now, in the last few games, they've only allowed a couple of touchdowns per game on average. So the defense is playing a lot better. So after we have Week 14, where are we heading into the last 3 weeks of the season based on the playoff situation? Well, let's start with the AFC. I'm going to spend a few minutes on the AFC and a few minutes on the NFC. Clearly right now in the driver's seat for home field advantage and the number 1 seed is the Baltimore Ravens. This team, they've won 9 games in a row. They beat the Buffalo Bills, of course. They have the tiebreaker over New England should it come down to that. The Ravens play the Jets at home Thursday night. They play Cleveland on the road, and then they play the Steelers, of course. And the Ravens, they have the tiebreak on the Pats. And the Ravens also have at least a 2-game lead on every other team in the AFC. Right now, the Ravens are in the lead for the number 1 seed. The Patriots, they're the number 2 right now in the AFC, but there are a lot of teams on their heels at this current time. And here's another thing to remember. If New England stumbles down the stretch and they finish with the same record as the Chiefs, Kansas City now would own that tiebreaker, and they'd get the higher seed and potentially the first round bye. So keep an eye on that. The Chiefs are right behind them at 9-4. Again, these records: Baltimore 11-2, Patriots 10-3, Kansas City 9-4. They're only 1 game back of the Pats, and they now have the tiebreaker. So the Chiefs, they're going to be the AFC West champions. They're currently the 3 seed, but again, they are chomping at the bit to try and catch New England. The 4 seed, of course, is the AFC South leader in the Houston Texans. Now, look, they absolutely got rocked by the Denver Broncos. They were a no-show, but there is still good news if you're a Houston Texans fan. That news would be that they own the tiebreaker over the Titans, basically on the account of the division record, and the Texans are 3-1 against the AFC South, of course, and the Titans are 2-2. So if the season ended today, Houston would host the Bills in the division round in a matchup that has the Sunday afternoon time slot written right on it. So keep an eye on that, but the Texans looked horrible against Denver, and right now are sliding a little bit. In there at the number 5 spot, now we get into the wild cards. It's the Buffalo Bills right now at 9-4. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens in an enormous game coming up this Sunday at Pittsburgh against the 8-5 Steelers. And the Steelers are the other team in there as the other wild card. They would be the 6th team in the AFC right now. The Bills obviously still have to go to New England after this week against Pittsburgh, and then they wrap up the season at New Era Field in Buffalo against the New York Jets. The Bills are still in primetime position to get into the postseason, but they would do themselves an enormous favor by winning this week against Pittsburgh, and then that way you're not into a situation where you have to win maybe, possibly, the last week of the season against the Jets. The way the Jets are playing, they're playing a lot better. It's a division game. Darnold's playing a lot better, and he's healthy. You don't want to run into that scenario where you have to win the last game of the year to get into the postseason. So the Bills, if they can win against Pittsburgh this week, big-time stuff there. The offense still has dreadful moments. The red zone offense still has dreadful moments. Josh Allen is not handling pressure when it comes at him from every direction. We saw that against the Patriots. We saw it against the Ravens. We've seen it against the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw it against the Browns a little bit. This guy's got to start striking on some balls down the field and handling a lot of the defensive pressure for sure. And then I mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we go. They beat the Cardinals. 3 straight wins for Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, to me, absolutely the head coach of the year. I don't think it's even close at this possible point. Pittsburgh, big one against the Bills, and if the season ended today, they would go to Kansas City in the wild card round. In the mix, we still have the Tennessee Titans, of course. They won their 4 straight, beat the Raiders. They're alive for the AFC South title. They're alive for the wild card. Pay attention to the Tennessee Titans. There are 3 teams that were kind of in the mix. Now I think they're kind of out as long shots. That's the Browns, Raiders, and the Colts. Quickly to the NFC, 49ers. I think they're the best team in the NFC right now. They have the 1 seed after they just beat the New Orleans Saints. You look at the Green Bay Packers, not a pretty win against Washington, but they're in there at the number 2 spot right now. They close out against 3 NFC North opponents. They get the Bears at home in Week 15, then they go to Minnesota and to Detroit. The Saints now in the 3rd spot at 10-3. Obviously, they host the Colts in Week 15, then they go to Tennessee and Carolina. If the season ended today, the Saints would host the Vikings in a wild card round. What a game that could be. The Cowboys, the under 500 NFC East. Good Lord. Dallas right now is 6-7, and as the old adage says, the Cowboys feel amazing when they watch the Eagles, and the Eagles feel amazing when they watch the Cowboys because nobody literally wants to win this division. We'll see what happens here. Dallas' schedule a wee bit tougher than Philadelphia because they do have to deal with the LA Rams, all of a sudden the hot Rams in Week 15 coming up. Obviously, they've got Philadelphia, and of course, the division championship game there. It could very well be that, and then they have to host Washington to close out the season. So we'll see what happens here, and you know what? The Eagles won on Monday night. The Cowboys own the tiebreak right now on account of winning the head-to-head matchup earlier this season. So this thing could come right down to it, 8-8, and who gets the tiebreak? Right now, Dallas owns the tiebreak, but that could change with that second matchup and certainly looking at the conference and division records, of course. The Seahawks at number 5, they're 10-3 right now on the season. And look, Week 17 game versus the 49ers in Seattle could have all the implications on the NFC playoff picture. And of course, if the Seattle Seahawks, they'll win the NFC West if they win out. How about that? For as good as the 49ers are, and I label them as the best team in the NFL, the Seahawks could win it if they win out. And they've got that big matchup against San Francisco. But right now, they're a wild card team at the 5. A lot can change in the last 3 games. The Vikings in there at number 6, I think they're also the most dangerous team. They're also undefeated at home. They bring a balanced football attack from both sides. I love their playmakers with Thielen and Rudolph and Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. Stephon Diggs is an electrifying breaking wide receiver. The Vikings are 2-2 against the NFC North. Packers are 3-0. If the season ended today, they would go to New Orleans, as I mentioned, for the wild card run. They need Green Bay to stumble quite a bit. Now, in the mix, you got the Rams. They've looked better. They're 8-5, but they're on the outside looking in a little bit here. They got a lot of work to do. They got to win out and then hope for somebody to falter a little bit. The Bears, uphill climb. They need to make up the 2 games on the Vikings for a shot at the postseason. They go to Minnesota in Week 17. And, of course, the final storyline, again, to recap, the NFC East is dreadful. Eagles, Cowboys. Eagles still have that shot at the NFC East. They beat the Giants last night. We'll see what that matchup does before the season ends. There's a little bit of that NFL playoff picture. Still 3 weeks to go. Should be a lot of fun. Week 15, 16, and 17. It'll decide everything. Mike Lindsley with you. 9 Minutes with me. IGTV, Facebook, YouTube. We're brought to you by Empower Federal Credit Union and Timberbanks Golf Club. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. And as I always say, enjoy the games.